It's kind of interesting development at the Los Angeles Rams camp. Matthew Stafford not expected to throw a lot over the next couple of days as he's dealing with this elbow issue, which actually cropped up in the spring, described to me as bad tendonitis. It is a tendon issue, a throwing arm, obviously something we need to monitor going forward.
If I was really on top of my you would have gotten this video last night, but unfortunately, as the day goes on, I'm still unfortunately recovering, and at night I just get really exhausted and I can't bring you guys the energy that I would like to bring you. But this year my goal is to bring you guys game recaps. We want to be able to recap every game on a weekly basis. Originally I wanted to drop it on Sunday night or Monday night. It might be like Tuesday-ish, as we're still trying to work out the kinks throughout the season, but we have a lot to discuss as a result of Thursday night football, stuff that we saw from both sides that I want to get to. So before we get to the content, we are doing cash giveaways on my Twitter account. All you have to do is follow and turn on my notifications and retweet the tweet in front of you. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills versus the Los Angeles Rams, because there's a lot that we learned last night. I also wanted to say it's just the first game. It's the beginning of the season. Some of this stuff might be an over-analysis or it might be an over-exaggeration, but hey, that's what we do because we're football fans. The very first drive saw Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills pretty much just march down the field, take up a decent amount of clock, about 5 minutes off of the game clock, and easily score a touchdown via a 26-yard pass to Gabriel Davis. The Los Angeles Rams, however, didn't necessarily have as much momentum. And if you're an individual that happens to have Cam Akers or Allen Robinson on their fantasy football team, you'd be really pissed at how Matthew Stafford decided to run last night. I mean, there's been multiple instances where Allen Robinson seemed to be wide freaking open and Matthew Stafford just didn't look his way. Meanwhile, Cooper Kupp got targeted 20 times and Ben Skowronek seems to be the wide receiver 2 for the Los Angeles Rams, but we'll get to that in just a sec. The Rams were able to make it all the way to midfield and then inevitably had to punt. The Rams had a pretty successful drive going for themselves until a faithful 2nd and 6 at the Buffalo 43, where Matthew Stafford met his old teammate once again, Von Miller, for an 8-yard sack, which brings us to one of our very first storylines of this entire game. I want to obviously give credit to the Buffalo Bills defense for what they've been able to do, but is this Rams offensive line going to be able to get the job done this season? Well, let's continue this game. The Rams would then punt, but the Buffalo Bills would get the ball back. Devin Singletary seems to be the lead back for the Buffalo Bills once again, and actually looked pretty damn good last night, as the Buffalo Bills would march down to the Rams' 29-yard line before a ball would bounce off of Isaiah McKenzie's chest and get intercepted by Terrell Lewis at the Rams' 24, which I don't know if you guys saw my short that said NFL rule changes that would make the game better, but I would love if they could include wide receiver interceptions, because I don't think this interception was Josh Allen's fault, but I still think it was a remarkable play by the Rams defense. The Rams would get the ball back and go 3 and out, which was a huge storyline for this entire game, because on the very next drive, the Buffalo Bills would have the ball for one play, and then James Cook would fumble on 2nd and 8. If you're a James Cook fantasy football owner, man, that must have been disappointing. The Rams would get the ball back, and then Matthew Stafford would throw the most egregious interception that you've ever seen. I mean, he wasn't even close to being able to reach Tyler Higbee on this. You're going up against the Buffalo Bills, a team that could potentially be, or is very likely to be, the #1 offense in the entire NFL. And throughout this entire game, the Los Angeles Rams defense, yes, I know there's a ton of memes of Jalen Ramsey getting absolutely cooked. I mean, I think the exact statistic for it is Jalen Ramsey allowed a perfect passer rating of 158.3. He was targeted 7 times and he allowed 6 receptions for 124 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Rams were able to come up with 4 takeaways, yet the Rams offense wasn't able to do anything with those 4 takeaways. So I don't think there's much else the Rams defense could have done. I mean, when you're on the field for that freaking long, eventually you're gonna get exhausted. The Buffalo Bills would then get the ball back, drive would result in a field goal, and then the Rams would finally put together a very successful drive that resulted in a Cooper Kupp touchdown pass from Matthew Stafford. Fortunately for the Los Angeles Rams, once again, again, their defense would come up with a huge play. Josh Allen would try to target Jamison Crowder down the middle and would get intercepted, which would set the Rams up in field goal range to tie the game at halftime. When the game would restart, the Rams would come out and go 3 and out. The Buffalo Bills came out swinging. The moment they would get the ball back, it would drain the clock by 5 minutes and it would result in a Josh Allen touchdown pass to Isaiah McKenzie, who redeemed himself wonderfully. The Rams would get the ball back and they would end up punting after 6 plays. The Bills once again would get the ball back and would easily drive down the field, once again milking 6 minutes and 44 seconds of clock this time, and the drive would end with a Josh Allen scramble for 3 yards. I think Josh Allen got hit way too many times this game. I mean, I don't know what Ken Dorsey is doing. I don't know if Ken Dorsey saw what happened to Cam Newton, and no, I'm not saying prime Cam Newton, and I'm not saying Cam Newton had nearly the throwing ability of Josh Allen, but seeing Josh Allen taking this amount of hits, having this many designed runs, scrambling this many times, makes me uneasy for his longevity. Dominant performance aside. But regardless, the Rams would get the ball back. Matthew Stafford would get intercepted by Jordan Poyer, which would set the Buffalo Bills up for probably the best play of the entire game. An absolute bomb by Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs, who completely cooks Jalen Ramsey for a 53-yard touchdown. The Rams would get the ball back and they would drive down for 7 plays, and on the 7th play, Matthew Stafford would get intercepted once again. At that point, the game was already over, but that was kind of the icing on the cake as the Buffalo Bills won 31-10. But what can we take away from this? One, I'm not worried about the Rams defense. I think the Rams defense actually did a remarkable job. It was just towards the end, clearly, I think they were burnt out a little bit. I mean, they were on the freaking field a lot. It seems like every time they would come up with a turnover, Matthew Stafford would literally just give the ball back to the Buffalo Bills like that. It also seemed like Matthew Stafford wanted nothing to do with Allen Robinson the entire game, but of course, that is my inner fantasy football owner coming out. What's concerning about this is you could blame multiple things for the Rams' lack of success. One could potentially be the Buffalo Bills having an awesome defense. I mean, Von Miller absolutely dominated the Rams last night. Matthew Stafford was sacked 7 times. Could this be as a result of a remarkable pass rush? Of course. Could it also be a result of a horrific offensive line? Yes, it could definitely be both. And we're not going to necessarily know whether or not this is going to be a thing for the Los Angeles Rams all season long after losing Andrew Whitworth. The addition of Von Miller obviously paid off. I mean, he had such a dominant performance with 4 total tackles, 2 sacks, and 3 tackles for a loss with 2 QB hits last night. I don't know if that's because Joseph Noteboom is just not a good left tackle or just Von Miller is still dominant. You could leave that to your own interpretation. But Joseph Noteboom allowed 3 sacks and 10 pressures in week 1, according to Pro Football Focus's initial grading. The Rams were in 11 personnel for 100% of the plays, and the Bills blitzed on 0% of the plays. What's going absolutely viral is the fact that Jalen Ramsey once trash talked Josh Allen in his rookie year, which, of course, rookie year Josh Allen was a completely different Josh Allen than the player we see in front of us now. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a player develop the way Josh Allen has, but he had this to say: I think Buffalo Bills draft pick Josh Allen is trash. I don't care what nobody say, he's trash. And it's gonna show too. That's a stupid draft pick to me. We play them this year and I'm excited as hell. I hope he's their starting quarterback. He played at Wyoming, and every time they played a big school, like they played Iowa State, which is not a big school in my opinion because I went to Florida State, he threw 5 interceptions and they lost by a couple touchdowns or something like that. He never beat a big school, and if you look at his games against big schools, it was always hella interceptions, hella turnovers. It's like, yo, if you're this good, why couldn't you do better? He fits that mold. He's a big, tall quarterback, big arm supposedly, and I don't see it personally. Jalen Ramsey never beat Josh Allen throughout his entire career thus far, so that's an interesting note to take. But the real question that we might be asking, and you might be asking as a football fan, and it could be an overreaction or it could not be an overreaction, is that issue with Matthew Stafford's elbow. Is that actually something we should be concerned about going throughout the season? Is that the reason why he struggled so much last night? We didn't see any deep shots from Matthew Stafford, and he seemed to only have tunnel vision for his slot wide receiver, Cooper Kupp. He completely avoided Allen Robinson all night long, and there were moments where he completely missed his wide receiver in general. He threw 3 interceptions last night, dropped back 41 times, completed 29% of his passes, had a QBR of a 20.9, and was sacked 7 times. Detroit Lions fans will tell you that this is the Matthew Stafford they all know and love, but honestly, this could potentially be an issue throughout the season. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about the very first game of the season? Are you overreacting like me? Do you think the Los Angeles Rams are in for a long season, or do you think they'll adjust to this game and figure it out this upcoming season. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.